Hello students, I am Dr. Tisha Vyas, Assistant Professor Biotechnology at Siusha Institute of Science. In today's lecture, we are going to study regarding the ethical, social as well as the legal aspects related to the field of biotechnology. These are the content of the following lecture. Now let us see that what are the genetically modified organisms. As we all know that the ones whose genetic characteristics have been changed by the insertion of a modified gene or a gene that is transferred from one organism to another organism using the genetic engineering methods, those are termed as genetically modified organisms. Now there are certain threats also which are involved from the field of genetically modified organisms. Let us see that what are the perpetrators. Basically, perpetrators are the person who carries out a harmful or illegal or the immoral act. So they can be the students or the terrorists. They can also be the employees of the particular industries or the small group of people involved behind this, as well as there are transitional terrorists, those who travel from one country to another using such organisms. Then there are opponents, there are also enemies, as well as the nature can also sometimes be harmful while using the modified organisms. The cultures which we use, they can be the bacterial cultures or the viral cultures, they can be the fungus as well as the prions, and the methods which we use, they can be the DNA transfer methods, they can be during the research of those organisms. They can also be the de novo methods, that is the new methods which are used for the modification of these organisms. And how can they be weaponized? They can either be the scale up methods or embedded or the deliver methods. In the scale up methods, they are basically used from a small flask and developed into a big fermenters, and through this they are developed into a larger scale of organisms. And in embed cultures, they can develop the organisms inside the laboratories, and then they can be used as a weapon. And deliver means if the organisms are delivered from one country to another country, they can develop the infections, then they can be spreaded into the air and they can form aerosols. Then there are certain delivery systems which lead to the weaponize of such organisms, as well as the vectors or poisoning, as well as the cross contamination between the different organisms. Then what can be the outcome of this genetically modified organisms as we use them as the weaponized? They can be human casualties. As we all know that the people nowadays, they are suffering from COVID-19. Then there can be healthcare system. The agriculture as well as the animals can also suffer from such kind of organisms. The area in which these organisms are developed, they can also be suffering from the ill respects. Then also the equipments, if they get contaminated, then there can be failure in the economic of the state as well. What is the cost, or you can say what are the benefits of the genetically modified organisms? The cost overall can go very high if a person uses such organisms. Then what are the probability of the effects? The probability of the effects are basically the organisms, they can affect the human population. Then there are also certain safety measures which has to be taken while using these organisms, as well as the laboratory in which such organisms have been constructed should have the safety levels. Now, beside the threats which are involved behind the genetically modified organisms, there are also certain benefits of this genetically engineered organisms. Like the food can be developed into a more nutritious one. It means that it has more micronutrients as well as macronutrients embedded inside it. It can also be more tastier compared to the normal available food. The disease and the drought resistant plants can be developed into the environment using lesser water as well as the minerals supplied to it. then there can be less use of pesticides. Why so? Because by developing genetically modified organisms, the plant becomes disease resistant, and due to that there are lesser use of the pesticides. Then there can be increased supply of food with reduced cost and longer shelf life. See, as the disease resistance inside the plant develops, the plant can grow very nicely, and as it grows very nicely, it can be developed into more amount, and due to that it can be supplied into more quantities, and this also will reduce the cost as the pesticides are not used in more quantities, as well as it also increases the shelf life of the plants. Faster growing plants and animals, as I told you that by developing genetically engineered plants, the plant becomes more resistant to the insects, the pests, as well as they have proper nutrients inside it. This leads to the faster growth and development inside the plants as well as animals. Now, food with more desired traits such as potatoes that produce less of a cancer causing substance when fried. As you all know that refried food, it contains certain cancerous substances. So to reduce that, we can provide the food with more desirable qualities like more nutritious and everything, and this is possible only through the genetically engineered processes. Then medicinal foods can also be used as vaccines or other medicines. Basically, medicinal foods are nothing but certain plants as well as certain organisms which can be used as vaccines, as well as their secondary metabolites can be used to develop medicines. Now, there are also some people that have expressed the concerns about genetically engineered food, like the creating food that can cause an allergic reactions or that are toxic. Yes, these are possible in certain conditions. Then they can also be developed into the harmful genetic changes into the transgenic plants or transgenic animals. Then there can be the genes which are moving from one plant or one animal to the another plant or animals, and it cannot be genetically engineered at certain times. And in some cases also the food becomes less nutritious. Now let us see that what are the hazardous waste. Basically, the bulk which is generated by the industries as well as the factories, it can cause the environmental pollution as well as it can cause adverse health effects if they are not handled or managed properly. So today we are going to look about the management as well as the handling, the treatment as well as the storage and the disposal facilities of the hazardous and other waste. First of all, let us look at the responsibilities of the occupiers for the management of the hazardous as well as the other waste. See, for the management of the hazardous, the certain steps should be taken. They are as follows: that there should be prevention, then minimization, reuse, recycling, recovery, utilization, including co-processing, as well as there should be safe disposal. So let us look forward now. What are the management steps? The occupier, it should be responsible for the safe and environmentally sound management. Any person cannot just dispose of the industrial or the factory waste in any manner, but there should be certain steps which should be followed by any individual before the release of such kind of hazardous waste. Then the hazardous and other waste, they should be sent or sold to an authorized actual user or shall be disposed of in an authorized disposal facilities. Now there are certain waste which has to be treated before their release, so it should either be transferred to such places where the treatment has to be given to the waste, or they themselves should dispose in such an authorized manner. Then the hazardous as well as the other waste, it shall be transported from an occupier's establishment to an authorized actual user, as well as the certain rules should be followed behind the transport of such kind of waste. Then the occupiers, they who intend to get the hazardous as well as other waste treated, then they should be contacting the occupier's establishment, and they should also have the specific information for the storage as well as the disposal of such kind of hazardous waste. Then the occupiers, they should take certain steps while managing the hazardous waste. They are as follows: that the contain contaminants and prevent accidents and limit their consequences on human beings as well as the environment. As I told you earlier, that if the hazardous waste that includes contaminants, then they should be stored in such a manner that it does not create any kind of accidents as well as any harmful effects on the human beings as well as the environment. Then the provide person working in the site with appropriate training. It means that the persons who are treating such kind of hazardous waste, they should be equipped with well organized training, as well as they should have certain equipments, as well as they should have certain basic information to save themselves from the contaminants which are released from the hazardous waste. Now let us look at what are the strategies involved for the transportation of any such kind of hazardous as well as other waste. See, first and the foremost thing is that no import and export should be allowed from one country to another, and if the import has to be done, then it should be only permitted only for the processes like recycling, the recovery, as well as the reuse and other processes like co-processing. So the actual users of the hazardous waste, they should give the prior information regarding the transport of such kind of waste from one country to another. And the second most important thing is that they should have the permission of the Ministry of Environment, Forest, as well as the climate change. And they should also take prior consent of the importing country where the import of the hazardous waste has to be taken place. And the third most important thing is that they should have a prior written consent as well as permission from the Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change of the countries where it has to be imported. Now let us look forward that how the treatment, the storage as well as the disposal facilities of the hazardous waste should take place. See, first of all, the main people involved are the state government, the occupiers, as well as the operators of the facilities. So these individuals, they should first of all identify the proper sites where they store the hazardous waste, and they should have the knowledge for establishing the facilities given for the treatment as well as the storage and disposal of such kind of hazardous waste. Then the operators of these facilities, they should design and they should have a proper setup for this treatment, storage as well as the disposal facilities as per the technical guidelines which are issued by the Central Pollution Control Board. And then this Central Pollution Control Board, they should also monitor the setting up as well as the operations which are taken behind the treatment, storage and disposal facilities. The board as well as the operator should also be responsible for the processes that they are safe as well as environmentally sound, and they should also maintain the records of the treatment and the disposal as well as the storage procedures given to the hazardous and other waste, and they should file a proper annual return from time to time as per in order to get the return related procedures. Now let us see that what are the precautionary measures which are taken while the transportation of such hazardous as well as other waste. See, there are certain rules which are made by the central government under the Motor Vehicle Act, that is in 1988, and this step should be followed as well as the guidelines should be taken in accordance. Then the transporter should provide with the proper relevant information that what kind of hazardous waste is he following, and it should also have the no objection certificate which is issued by the State Pollution Control Board. And In case of the transportation of such hazardous as well as other waste, then the sender shall be intimated with both the state pollution control board and before the handling of such kind of waste. And in case of transportation, the responsibility of safe transport should be taken either by the sender or by the receiver, and the proper authorization for the transport should be in concern with the state pollution control board, and the authorization for the transport shall also be obtained either by the sender or by the receiver, and on the behalf of the transport which has been arranged. Now let us see that what is the intellectual property rights. Intellectual property rights, that is IPRs, they are the socio-economic tools which has been created a temporary monopoly for inventor firms as well as to enable such firms to charge prices for their innovations that are many times higher than the marginal cost of the production of the innovations. So basically this allows the inventor firms to salvage their research costs and to also secure a profit on their innovations, and also to the virtue of increasing the financial attractiveness of engaging in the process of the production of the drugs, the innovations, as well as the IPRs. They can also be used and often are instrumental in correcting the market failure of undersupply of the pharmaceutical innovations. TRIPS stands for the trade related aspects of intellectual property rights, and the introduction of IPRs for pharmaceutical innovations, they often creates another market failure that consists in the fact that a number of mutually beneficial transactions can take place between the sellers as well as the buyers, and the relatively high price of an intellectual property protected drug, it squeezes certain potential buyers out of the market, namely those buyers who are able and willing to buy the product if it was pricey. And the large body of contemporary academics literature, it suggests that the intellectual property rights implemented in the trade related aspects of intellectual property rights, that is TRIPS agreement and various US FTAs, gives rise to a number of ethical problems. And basically the intellectual property rights, they are categorized into different categories like the patent, trademark, copyright, and the trade secrets. And intellectual property is just like any other form of the property a person can possess, like the innovation, and in form of the movable as well as the immovable assets. Now let us see that what are TRIPS, that is trade related aspects of intellectual property rights agreement. The TRIPS agreement, it was embedded in the working on 1st January 1995, and it basically provides the intellectual property rights as well as the standardized legal as well as administrative actions are taken through the TRIPS. And the TRIPS agreement is basically for 1 year for the industrialized countries, then 5 years for the developing countries, and at least 10 years for the least developed countries. Now there are three main basic features of the TRIPS agreement, that the agreement sets out the minimum standards of protection and it has to be provided by the each member country. And the main TRIPS standards relating to pharmaceuticals, the countries must include their patent laws are that there should be availability for the patents for both pharmaceutical products as well as the processes as well as the inventions that are new, and it should also involve an innovative steps, and they should be capable of the industrial applications. Then there should be protection of the product directly obtained using a patented process. There are agreements which covers the 5 broad issues, that the application of the basic principles of the trading system as well as the international intellectual property agreements. Then there should be methods which can be used for the adequate, that is giving maximum protection of the IP rights. Then there should be the enforcement, means the application of those rights which are sufficiently and adequately in their own territories. And then the settling of the disputes on the IP rights between the members of the WTO has to be taken place. There should also be special transitional agreements during the period when the new system is being introduced. There are also the availability of the procedures at the national level to enable the patent owners to protect their own rights against any kind of fraud. And there should be enforcement as well as the dispute settlement. The enforcement is to be taken by the IPR, and the dispute settlement agreements, it makes dispute between the WTO members in respect of the TRIPS obligations subject to the WTO's dispute settlement procedures. So any kind of dispute if takes place in the IP rights, then it has to be settled by the WTO. Now there are certain principles on which the TRIPS works, that they should be provided to the member countries, and it should also provide the patent for the products as well as the processes in all the fields of technology, whether it is microbiology or biotechnology, as well as to the subjects that provides the test of novelty. Then there is then innovativeness in such kind of subjects. Then it should also be provided to the industrial use. And there should be mandatory patent of the microorganisms as well as the other microbial as well as the non-microbial processes or the procedures. And the member should also be allowed to make only limited exclusions from such kind of patentability. And it should also give options to the states for protecting the new plant varieties through the patenting procedure and also through the effectiveness sui generis system, that is the protection of the genetic material of the plants as well as the animals. And it should also ensure the protection as well as the amendment of the intellectual property rights, and it should also be contributed in promotion of such kind of technological innovations for the mutual advantages of the producers as well as the users of such kind of technological knowledge. Now, as we talked in the earlier slide, that there is also WTO in recognition to the TRIPS. So let us see what is WTO. Basically, WTO stands for the World Trade Organization, and it is a kind of permanent organization which has been established on the basis of an international treaty which has been approved by the participating countries. And it has achieved the international status like the IMF and the IBRD, but it is not an agency of the United Nations organization, that is UNO. And it is also an international organization based on the strong legal framework. Now, World Trade Organization has been set up in the year 1995, and it builds up on the organization structure of the GATT, that is the General Agreement of the Tariffs and the Trade, and its secretariat. Now, WTO, it has over 130 members and accounting for 90% of the world trade. Now, these members, they have been increased to 157 members till the year 2012, of which 117 are the developing countries. It has its headquarters in Geneva, Switzerland, and its activities are supported by the secretariat of around 700 staff led by the WTO Director General. Now let us look forward towards the structure of WTO. See, the WTO's top level decision making body is the ministerial conferences, which meets at least once in every 2 years, and below this is the General Council, which consists of normally the ambassadors and the heads of the delegations in Geneva, but sometimes officials sent from the members' capitals as well, which meets several times in a year in the Geneva headquarters. And the General Council also meets as the trade policy review and the dispute settlement body. At the next level is the Goods Council. Then there is the Service Council and the Intellectual Property, that is the TRIPS Council, which reports to the General Council, and numerous specialized committees which are working. The working groups and the working parties deal with the individual agreements and the other areas such as the environment, the development, membership applications, as well as the regional trade agreements. Now let us see that what are the main objectives of WTO. See, it works to improve the standard of living of the people in the member countries, then to ensure that there is full employment as well as the broad increase in effective demand, as well as it also works for the increment of the production and the trade of goods as well as the trade of services. Now let us look forward towards the functions of the WTO. See, the main function of WTO is to implement the rules as well as the provisions related to the trade policy review mechanism, and then it is to provide a platform to the member countries to decide the future strategies related to the trade as well as the tariff, and to provide the facilities for the implementation, administration as well as operation of the multilateral as well as the bilateral agreements of the world trade. It also works for the benefit to administer the rules and processes related to the dispute settlement between the countries, and also to ensure that there is minimalistic use of the world resources. It assists certain international organizations such as the IMF, that is the International Monetary Funds. Then there is IBRD, that is International Bank for the Reconstruction and Development, and there are certain other organizations that, like the WIPO, that is the World Intellectual Property Organizations. Then there is UNCTAD, that is United Nations Conferences on the Trade and Development, and for the establishment of coherence in the universal economic policy. Then the General Council also, it makes certain appropriate arrangements for the cooperation with the non-governmental, then as well as the intergovernmental organization. Now let us look at what is GEAC. That is GEAC, it stands for the Genetic Engineering Appraisal Committee, and it has been established by the Ministry of Environment, Forest as well as the Climate Change. See, India's biotechnology regulatory systems, they has experienced a number of changes since the rules for the manufacture, the import, export and storage of the hazardous microorganisms as well as the genetically modified organisms or the cells, which has taken place in the year 1989, and they were first notified under the Environment Act in the year 1986, including the elaboration of the number of guidances documented and published by the Department of Biotechnology in the year 1990-1998 as well as 1999. And there are different regulatory bodies which are for the approval processes as well as the Genetic Engineering Approval Committee, that is GAC, and it is one amongst them which functions under the Department of the Environment, Forests and the Wildlife to examine and issue the clearance from the viewpoint of the environmental safety. And there are certain functions which are followed by the GEAC, that the appraisal activities involving the large-scale use of hazardous microorganisms and recombinants in research as well as in industrial production from the environmental angle, and also to appraise the proposals which are related to the release of the genetically modified organisms as well as those products into the environment, including their experimental field trials, and they should also follow certain functions which are related to the committee or any other person which is authorized by its power to take the action under the Environmental Protection Act. Important questions for the following lecture includes to draw the framework for the threats involved in genetically modified organisms, and also to explain the benefits as well as the risk management related to genetically modified organisms. The next one, that is to write a note on the hazardous waste management, its treatment, its transport, its storage and handling rules. The third one is to explain what is IPR and also to show the ethical as well as the social issues that are related to IPR as well as TRIPS. The fourth one is to write a detailed note on the World Trade Organization, including its functions. And the fifth one is to explain what is the GEA committee and to write down its functions. Thank you for hearing me out. If you have any queries, you can mail me at my email ID.